1:32, fifth at that spot, the Onse rider at 1:52. So going into the next time check, which is 55.1, the situation stands like it's been for some time now. Gonzalez Galdeano in the lead, Julik second, Roos third. At the finish, Roos is now the top dog, Serrano second, and Julik into third spot. But we're now waiting then for the next official time checks coming through. The frame that he's using on his time trial bike, by the way, they're going to use, or they have used, a special material called the OCLV-HC carbon fibre. It's typically American, isn't it, really? And they put it into a wind tunnel as well. They put him on it. They use, it's actually moulded into a particular frame with a complex aerodynamic shape, so that you can't get it through welding materials. And you can, as I said earlier on, have for time trialling bikes that are monocoque. That's in other words, all the frame, the top tube, the down to the seat tube, and all the other bits and pieces on it can be done in a one-piece moulding. But for some odd reason, only known to the UCI, you can't have that. You have to have the three main tubes stuck into lugs or stuck against the frame and welded, or stuck into lugs. I don't know why they do that, but anyway, that's what they did. And what they did, the Americans, is they put the frame into one of these wind tunnels, and they also then put a rider and eventually Armstrong on it, and they blew all the air around the arms and down the chest and round about, and past the seat post, and they decided then that the round seat post was not the right answer, that you need an ovalised one. And then what they also did, they eliminated the seat post altogether, and they attached the saddle to the top of what is a flattened, extended part of the seat post itself. So it goes straight up. So this is a saddle pin which is set in here now. You see that black one goes into the frame. It's then locked against the frame with a nut and bolt. That sounds very simple to me, but it's a very complicated titanium device that clamps the saddle the saddle pin into the frame. And if we go back to Armstrong's bike at some point, you'll see the tube that goes up from the bottom bracket goes straight the way up, all the way up to the saddle, and that took not only helped with the wind tunnel, but it took some of the weight out of the bike as well. And the same thing at the front of it too, when we get to look at it maybe. The front isn't just round like it has on a normal bike. They've got a little sharp point to it, so it smooths the airflow round as well. And they had to try to develop a single-bladed front fork. This is something Mike Burrows, the British designer, did for Chris Boardman's bike in the Olympics in '92, when Chris got the Olympic pursuit, and he had just one single-bladed fork on the front, and he had a single blade going at the back as well, because he was running a single fixed gear, and so that saved the weight, and it also saved the flow of the air round about it. It looks to me like Ulrich's about to catch his 3-minute man or something. Perhaps Sean can enlighten me on that while I'm talking about technicalities. It must be Kivilev coming up now, so he's not having a good day by the looks of things. Started 3 minutes in front of him.
At the 50-kilometre mark, he's about to catch him.
Better catch him, right. And so they did this single blade at the front, the Americans. We'll go back to Armstrong's bike and you can look at it, but he has what looks like a normal blade now, one on either side, because it didn't meet the UCI regulations. And they went through the whole thing, and when they did the final testing, they said that the frame, and with the man on top, because the man often has more problems in creating wind flow and disturbance than the bike itself, they reckon it would stay between 10 and 15 seconds in a 40-kilometre time trial over Armstrong's previous TT bike. So measuring the two bikes, they reckon they could save between 10 and 15 seconds over 40 kilometres, which means they would probably save something in the order of 25 seconds of this race over his previous bike. Back up. This is the bike, the Trek bike, specially designed, all in the wind tunnel, that single seat tube going right the way up with the saddle on the top. It has to be exactly measured in the right place, and then it's clamped in there, specially light and special bicycle indeed then. And the average speed, well, we're just getting some information from Feenlong side here, passing it through to Sean. And so going back to this bike that Armstrong's been using, the idea of the UCI was to, as we're watching Bogart coming through here, who, by the way, if I can just go off at a tangent as usual, although he's finishing 21st here on the screen, he won't have lost much of his position. He was 8th this morning, and he got a 2-minute lead over Botero, and I don't think Botero's going to catch him back on those 2 minutes, and he couldn't really catch Sevilla, the chap in the young jersey white jersey young rider competition because about a 2-minute gap there. So Bogart rode in his vacuum all day today, and he's up there still in 8th spot. A few days ago, if you watched our coverage when he was with a group of riders who gained a lead of something like 35 minutes, on that particular occasion he jumped up from 16th, Bogart did, who just finished 16th, into 8th spot. In 16th spot, if he'd ridden into Paris in 16th spot, he would have earned £1,000, but having moved over to 8th spot, £5,000. So being out there for only about 140 miles that day wasn't a bad day's pay. 4,000 quid moving up on the classification to 8th. You don't normally jump that much, but he did it that day. Gonzalez Galdeano now going to take the lead, 1:15.40. Well, he's been on our leaderboard at the first time check till Armstrong pushed him off it. He was on the leaderboard in first spot until Armstrong pushed him off it. Young Sevilla here, well, that's not a bad time for the leader on the young jersey competition, 1:18.51. But going back then to the time check at 55 kilometres, Gonzalez Galdeano was leading there. In second spot was Julik, and in third spot was Roos. Now at the finish, Gonzalez Galdeano has taken the lead in 1:15.40. Roos in second spot by 1 minute in 1:16.41. Serrano's just finished in third spot, 1:16.41, just 1 second slower than Gonzalez, than Roos, and just 1 minute 1 second slower than Gonzalez Galdeano. We're getting some information handed to us here, Sean, by Laurent Fignon, who's got his computer going and his calculator, because my French colleagues got all facts and figures, at least 3 of them here bashing away. What's the information?
Yes, it was that Armstrong's average was 48.074 kilometres per hour.
Well, that's 6/8 so that's 6 multiplied by 5. According to my arithmetic, that's 30 miles an hour. Do you concur, Mr. Numbers Crunchers back in Paris?
To within a gnat's whisker, yes, I think that's just about 30 miles an hour. Some going, eh?
Do you get gnats in the middle of your dungeon there?
Oh, I don't know. I think the place was fumigated some time ago.
Well, the mosquitoes last night disturbed me. I left the bag in the car with my spray for mosquitoes, and so I had to sort of cover myself up, and they were bzzz all night. I didn't want to have any way of sheet on me, because it was very, very hot last night in the hotel, because we stayed in a very nice old hotel with lovely old furniture and lovely old paintings, and air conditioning hadn't been invented when they built that hotel in 1821 or where it was. No, I'm exaggerating, but lovely old hotel, nice meal as well, and in fact I had the pâté de foie gras, that's duck's liver, because we're going out to this part of the world, so I thought I'd better have some of the local delicacy. Back there with Armstrong, and a quick mention again about his bike. I'm not here to plug bikes completely, but I'm just telling you now about the technology that's got into this bike. Typical Americans, spending all this money on finding how to cleave through the air and get the best possible performance from his bike, and the same thing for all the equipment that goes on it and his clothing and everything else. And so when the UCI in their wisdom said that no longer will they allow companies to manufacture bikes with a single down tube, single seat pin, the sort of F-type frame of the type used by Boardman, and the perfection of that strange bike used by Aubry. They said, no, it's too expensive for the development of these bikes. We're going to have standardized bikes, nice standard diamond bikes. And do you know, Mike, if you're now going to raid your piggy bank, you can have a Trek frame and forks as ridden today by Lance Armstrong for a mere £2,800.
I'll get one first thing Monday.
Gosh, I wish I'd got the pay you get.
Well, the thing is, David, the question this is very relevant, you see, because funnily enough, I've had 2 emails, which I haven't mentioned yet, from 2 different people. Forgive me if I've not got the names just to hand. Both saying, supposing I go out and I spend 2,000, 2,500, whatever pounds on a brand new bike, just like Armstrong, just like Ulrichs.
And that's just the frame only, the 2,800.
Well, right.
Put the other bits on. We're talking about 3.5, 4 grand.
But the relevant question is, will it make them go? We're talking about average club cyclists here. Will it necessarily make them go any faster?
Sean, you've ridden all sorts of bikes in your career. Did any of them make you go any faster? Is this new technology kidology, or technology which has advantage? I mean, they say in the wind tunnel test here they can lock between 10 and 15 seconds off Armstrong's previous bike over 40 kilometres. Do you believe that, or is this manufacturer's ballyhoo to? I'm not going to knock Trek, but they all say my bike's better than his bike.
No, it certainly does. The aerodynamics are very important, and we really see that when it first came about with Le Mans, when he won the Tour from Fignon, and he came out with these tri-bars, and ever since they've been working on the aerodynamics, and it's definitely helping them all the time, and they're gaining a number of seconds per kilometre. How much exactly is difficult to say, but it's definitely an advantage.
And even apart from the bikes, Mike, the person who sent the email in might care to know that Professor Chester Kyle of the university in California, he was very interested in aerodynamics. He was probably the first to go down that particular route, and he did some tests, believe it or not, in the corridor in this university, because he was very interested in cycling. He had other things to do with aerodynamics, but he decided to have a look at cycling. And he did some tests, and he found if you just cover your hair with, and this was just even a cloth hat, but even more so with these aerodynamic hats you see now, that you could save not less than 1 second a kilometre. Now that may not seem very much, but over 60 kilometres a day, by wearing a hat like you can see there that these two riders have got on here, then compared if they didn't have a hat, they were actually, according to Professor Chester Kyle's experiments, you were going to go 1 second a kilometre faster. That's quite amazing, isn't it, to imagine that a human being with that bit of aid can go that much faster. What do you think?
Well, I've had my leg pulled many times about going faster just because I'm bald and therefore the top of my head is all smooth and shiny, but well...
There speaks a man who parts his hair with a chamois leather. Because really we shouldn't joke about this time trial, because the way in which Armstrong's going at the moment, he's really ripping the field to pieces, and he's completely kiboshed the expectations of Sean Kelly and myself that Ulrich will win the time trial and get some honour restored to himself and the Telecom team, who fought a great battle all the way through until this, the 18th stage. They've not given up yet. They won't give up tomorrow. They probably might take it reasonably easy on the Sunday, but undoubtedly Lance Armstrong is really going away from the rest of the field in a convincing way. And the way he was so relaxed at the start, Sean, would you expect him to be going like he's going now? It was just amazing, eh?
Well, we were half expecting him to do a very good time, and it's so easy to say, well, Armstrong will win again, but we thought Ulrich would be put up a better fight, but he's not been able to match him on any of the time trials here, and he's certainly not going to match him today. And we see the Ulster riders who are doing very, very good times. Of course, Gonzalez Galdiano was leading, and we have Serrano in third position. Now Belocchi is going to do a fabulous ride. So the Ulster team will put it up to the Kelme guys for the team award.
1:16.48 seemed to fade a little bit towards the back end now. Looking at some of the early times, he was fourth, 1:50 down on Armstrong. We'll wait for some more time checks coming in, but I think Belocchi started well. He was off the leaderboard at the 55 kilometre mark, and so possibly it was actually fourth at the first time check when they all went through. He was fourth at the second time check when they all went through, but can't see him on the time check at 55.1 when Armstrong is now the leader there. 1 hour 7 minutes 27 seconds. Gonzalez Galdiano in second spot by 1 minute and 14 seconds. Ulrich in third spot by 1 minute and 36 seconds. Bobby Julich in fourth spot by 1 minute and 38 seconds. And Didier Roos fifth at 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Simon coming in here was overtaken by Belocchi. See quite a gap opening up there between the two of them, but really the performance of Belocchi looks like he must have accelerated over that last bit, but we've still got Armstrong and Ulrich yet to come to maybe push him a bit further down, but I've not quite seen recently the time check between himself and Kivilev, but it looks like Kivilev has dropped out of his third spot.
Yes, he certainly has.
Yeah, so that's it.
Well, look, he definitely has taken over the third position from Kivilev, and we see Kivilev here in our shot. Actually, he's been overtaken by Ulrich, but he's staying quite close to Ulrich actually, and he's in a danger to get a fine from the Commissar, because you have to stay at 25 metres minimum, and I don't think he's at that since Ulrich has come by him. He's been at less than that all the time.
And he started out this morning 3 minutes on the road ahead of Ulrich, so Ulrich scored his 3-minute man, time trialling back in Great Britain. We ride at 1-minute intervals, and so he's now been caught for 3 minutes, which is a thumping great lot in a race which is only going over 38 miles in total. And so Belocchi has now gone past Kivilev on the overall classification. Kivilev this morning going back behind him. He had got a gap of nearly 5 minutes on Francois Simon, and Simon seems to have had a bad day anyway. Gonzalez Galdiano, well, he's done a jolly good time, hasn't he, at the moment, to finish 1:15.40. And Gonzalez Galdiano this morning started out 7 minutes or thereabouts behind Kivilev. I don't think he's going to drop back by 7 minutes, is Kivilev. So Gonzalez Galdiano will move up over Francois Simon, won't overtake Belocchi. Kivilev will drop back probably into fourth from third. Gonzalez Galdiano will probably move up in the fifth, but that gap's been closing, and Kivilev, I think, will have to go back to the drawing board on his time trial at some point, because he was so close, so near, yet in the end so far. You're quite right about it getting the slipstream bit, isn't he?
Yes,
will he give him some time, or just wrap his knuckles and fine him?
No, he could get some. He get a time penalty for this, because as I said, it's the 20. You have to keep 25 meters behind a rider that overtake you, and you also have to keep 2 meters to the side, not directly in his line behind. And Kivilev is not doing either, so he could be very easy, get a time penalty for this stage.
Any rough idea, Sean? What's the time penalty? 1 minute, 20 seconds, 2 minutes?
Well, depending on how long you give in the slipstream, I think they work on that basis, and it's not. I don't think it's a fixed time. I'm not sure on that on the regulations, but if you stay for a long number of kilometres in the slipstream, well, then I think the time penalty you would get would be greater.
There's 1 kilometre to go. He's still there at the moment. I'm asking that question because he's already losing ground on Belocchi. We know he's lost his third place to Belocchi. He's certainly going faster than Simon, but Gonzalez Galdiano back in 6th spot, who at the moment on the leaderboard in first spot, 1:15.40. So it's been interesting to see as Ulrich comes along here, who was 1 minute 36 seconds down on Armstrong at the last check, and just only 1 minute and no, it was 22 seconds down on Gonzalez Galdiano. Can Ulrich then push Gonzalez Galdiano off the top spot? He was 22 seconds down at the last time check, and he's coming up here now. He's still 8 seconds in arrears. He's pulled a lot back. This is typical Ulrich territory to come good towards the back end then. He may not take over the lead. He's not doing it, but he might have closed that gap just a little bit in the end as he comes in here. He's not going to be first. He's at the moment, he could well end up only in 3rd spot then. He won't be happy with that, I don't think, as he crosses the line then in 1:15.54. That's 15 seconds. He did pull back something towards the end, but it's not enough. Now here is Armstrong. He's only got 1 kilometre to go, and that would be roundabout on this particular straight. No more, Sean, than what, about 1 minute 20 at this sort of speed? Hey?
Ulrich has lost 1:43 on Armstrong. With a number of kilometres to go, and he was losing in the last number of kilometres. He was losing 3 seconds per kilometre on Armstrong. And just going back on last year on the final time trial, Ulrich, he finished 25 seconds behind Armstrong, and he's going to finish at about 1 minute and 45 to 1 minute and 50, I think, here.
So he's come up against a Superman here in Lance Armstrong, who has been so triumphant in the mountains. Those 5 mountain stages back to back, just with a slight break for a day off when we were down near Perpignan. He was just showing his power then in the climbs. He's now shown his power on the flat. He did so well, demolished everybody in the mountain time trial. He only took a minute out of Ulrich in the mountain time trial, but he's going to take more out of Ulrich on this slightly longer, flatter part, when Ulrich should, by rights, have been closer to Armstrong, which shows that Armstrong has come through this race absolutely perfect condition, and he's just gone on and going on and on and on, and just pushing everybody way off the leaderboard, way out of sight. This man undoubtedly has just done a fantastic time, 1:14.16, and he's getting better by the day. Undoubtedly, Lance Armstrong, going for his triple, his hat-trick, has just shown how strong he is, how triumphant he is, and how nobody is in the same class as this man from Texas. And I'm sure that Governor George Bush will be very pleased with this, because the Texan has really put the cycling on the map in the States. There, down there, is that beautiful gold museum, but the man in goal, third year in the trot, Lance Armstrong on the Champs-Élysées.
That's 138.
So what was that, Sean?
138, that Ulrich lost to Armstrong.
Amazing then, 138, and it was only a minute on that mountain time trial, so this was a really top draw performance by Armstrong, coming across the line at the end of it, eh?
A fabulous performance. You know, we didn't expect that from Armstrong, that much on Ulrich.
Armstrong in yellow then wins the time trial.
Yes, Lance Armstrong then taking the time trial, beating his rival Jan Ullrich very firmly by the time they got to the finish in Saint-Amand-Montrond. But behind them was still that big battle to see whether Joseba Bellocchi could get third place in the classification. His team manager Mollo says, well, the honour we get so far in this tour now is that we haven't had a stage win. We're second in the team classification. Now we've got third with Bellocchi in the general classification, but we really needed a victory, perhaps in the prologue or in the team time trial, or even in this time trial in a mountain stage. We've missed that. But you also have to understand that Armstrong and Ulrich were stronger than we were in all the important stages, and that Crédit Agricole did a wonderful team time trial. So we can only say bravo to them, and please let us have a chance to win next year. A little bit of humour from Manolo Seitz, the Oncé team manager. But Ulrich really did put in a storming performance in his attempt to beat Armstrong. It didn't come off, and behind him Kovalev fought a great rearguard battle. We asked him afterwards during the stage, were you informed of your gaps with Bellocchi? Yes, I was, but I didn't think I did a bad time trial. I really gave everything, and for me, I felt as if I'd ridden a good race at the end of it all, despite the fact that he's beaten me. The most important thing was obviously to do your best, wasn't it? Well, yes, of course, to do my best, but you can't do what is impossible, even though sometimes you rather think that you would like to do. Well, he did his best, but sadly, he has slipped down to fourth place. This man still very strongly and now assuredly, barring accidents, going to be on Sunday in top spot. Lance Armstrong, there you see the stage result. Igor Gonzalez Galdeano really did a cracking ride. Remembering he has had a victory in a time trial once before in Tour of Murcia. He won the prologue time trial a couple of years ago, so not that much of a surprise, but perhaps a surprise maybe that he beat Jan Ullrich down into third place. There's the gaps on some of the other big names, down to almost 5 minutes, and many riders even further behind Lance Armstrong as he secured his place at the top of the general classification.
Obviously the emphasis is to try and win the overall, not to try and win stages. I mean, if you get second 4 times and you still get the yellow jersey in Paris, it's what you came to do. So it's the in game that matters, but it's nice to win stages along the way. I can remember last year when I had not won a stage until the final time trial. I was frustrated. I felt a little empty, and so to come back this time, it feels, to win 4 stages, it feels good. I told myself that there would not be any gifts this year.
Well, he hasn't given too many gifts to anybody in this Tour de France, has he? 4 stage wins, as he says. He's now won 11 victories in stages in the Tour de France, and now you see that huge gap, 6 minutes and 44 seconds between him and Ullrich. But Bellocchi now above Kovalev into that third spot, so at the moment we've got the same 1-2-3 as we had on the podium in Paris 12 months ago. Lower down, some good names. Garzelli down in 13th place, winner of the Giro d'Italia, of course, last year. But there are still 1 or 2 exciting moments in store, I'm sure, over the last 2 stages, and particularly the battle between Stuart O'Grady in green and the man who's won it for the last 5 years, Eric Zabel. That surely is going to go on to these last 2 stages. Laurent Jalabert, well, victory in the King of the Mountains competition is assured barring accidents. Only a couple of minor 4th division category climbs to go over, 1 each on the last 2 days, and points wise he certainly can't be caught. All he's got to do is stay on his bike. And the same applies really now to Oscar Sevilla, the 24-year-old, from the Kelmy team. He has over 10 minutes in hand on his nearest rival in the young rider classification, last year's winner, Manchebo. Well, now we look to the penultimate stage of this year's tour, and it's a run of 149.5 kilometres from Orléans to Évry, almost into Paris. Here's Sean Kelly.
It is one of the last chances, of course, Champs-Élysées, but stage 19, I think it's a flat stage, a short stage, 149.5 kilometres. A lot of teams have not won a stage, especially some of the sprinter teams, so I think they'll be working to keep the bunch together. And also, of course, there's the green jersey, and I think Telecom with Zabel, they will want to come down to a sprint finish to see if he can take back some of the advantage that O'Grady has ahead of Zabel.
Well, that's going to be one of the exciting features to look out for in this penultimate stage. There's one little fourth category climb, and more importantly for O'Grady and Zabel, 2 intermediate sprints at 90 metres above sea level. That was, I was looking at roughly 1/3 and 2/3 of the way through the stage to Évry. Needless to say, we shall be bringing you that penultimate stage of this year's tour live here on Eurosport International and British Eurosport. We're on a little bit later on, so watch your clocks. We bring you the stage live from 4 o'clock CET, which of course means 3 o'clock if you're watching on British Eurosport. Be with us. Stage 19 of the Tour de France. Just a reminder, this is the stage from Orléans to Évry, a distance of 149.5 kilometres. It's been a very fast and hard stage in terrific heat, the temperature nudging the 30s centigrade as the riders really catapulted themselves along the road towards the finish of the stage. At the moment, the peloton intact as we once again join our commentators David Duffield and Sean Kelly.
Not the time to have trouble as we're getting in toward the finish at a fantastic rate of knots. We're going to finish way up on schedule. Sean, it's been pretty quick since it started this morning.
Yes, it is. It's after being very, very fast. In the first hour, they actually did 49 kilometres per hour average. In the second hour, they did 44. And I think there was in the second hour they slowed down quite a bit. We see them there. They stopped for natural causes, and then they started racing again. I think it will be. It's going to be a very, very fast stage, and I think they're well up on schedule.
Yeah, I think that first hour was over 30 miles an hour. If you feel back at home, just imagine. I think maybe the chaps who stayed on from the Formula 3000 watching the live program to realise then people can pedal bicycles at over 30 miles an hour in that 1 hour and still go on because they've still got a long way to go. In fact, the race is just over 90 miles today, nearly 100 miles. Imagine setting off like that. Baking hot day today. It's not a day when you can disregard taking plenty of water because the lads here are sweating like pigs, and the gap you can see are opening up for this rider's suddenly been blown out the back, so it's a great shame that at this stage, because nobody will go back for you when you're here unless you're a very valuable man, so you've got to go at it now, and he's hanging on in there at the moment, and it's one of the lads from the CSC team, and they've come very good in this race because Jalibert's got the polka dot jersey, and which of that one was
Garcia.
it? Garcia was it?
Yeah, Marcelo Garcia.
Nobody's going to go back for him.
Yeah, we don't. It's not sure if he's got dropped or if he had a mechanical problem. It looks like that he lost contact with the group for some reason. But when the cars come around him and he'll allow 10 or 15 cars to pass by, and he can possibly come back again in amongst the cars.
Amazingly, we've got more statistics coming up. Jam them in before we finish.
They keep coming, and Jens Vogt has lead back again from Vermote. Remember, we saw Vogt out earlier on, leading up to the first sprint, David. Well, that little break, it was only a few kilometres, but it was just enough to take him back to the top of the pile as the rider who has spent most time, more than any other rider in this tour, out in the lead, either on his own or in a little lead break. Jens Vogt, top of the pile once again.
Well, looking back now at the picture, top left-hand corner, when you come back to large picture, you'll see that even Jan Ulrich is up in about the 12th place at the moment, driving hard for today's stage. Nobody's going to do a long lone break today, Mike, for your statistics, gentlemen, because I'm sure we're going to find that this lot will stick together toward the finish. We're getting to around about, probably 15 less kilometres to go. And look at the way they're hammering along here now. A very hot day. You can see that the corner's already been cut now, and a motorcycle is romping through here. Well, that's all right. They've got an engine between their legs, not only going out today. Imagine what these riders are doing if you've just switched on to Eurosport or stayed with us after the Formula 3000. There's our helicopter ripping along, bringing you the action as it happens on this penultimate stage of the race. We've done 3,148 kilometres in the race so far. 3,200 is divided by 8, that's 4 8 is that diff. We've done now nearly 2,000 miles, and the average speed in the 2,000 miles across the length and breadth of France, up those thumping great mountains of the Alps and the Pyrenees, have averaged 39.781 kilometres per hour. That's a sniff under 40 miles an hour at average speed since these riders set off at the start of this race just 3 weeks ago. On the Saturday we had the prologue at Dunkirk. They've been right the way up through Belgium, down the way through towards the edge of Switzerland, right the way down over the Alps, transit across to Perpignan for the run across the Pyrenees, and then set back up north now, just on some 2,000 miles at a sniff under 40 miles an hour. They've only had 2 rest days, and the first rest day was no real rest because they flew the riders all the way down from the Alps down to the Pyrenees, so they didn't arrive until just about lunchtime to their hotels, went for a little training ride, had a rest and got ready for the next day. That's what these bike riders are doing. If you're first time watching Eurosport's coverage of the side, just look at the way these lads are riding. They're all determined to get to Paris. Unless barring accidents, there's going to be a problem to put them off their bikes. The 145 survivors of the 189 who set out from Dunkirk are now heading up towards the Champs-Élysées, up towards the Eiffel Tower and the Arc de Triomphe, and that famous 10 laps of that circuit in the centre of Paris. You have to say chapeau to them. They're still riding their socks off here. They pull this lot back. The chat's been going off the back. They want to get in there, and some of them may be just fatigued. Some of them may have had a problem, but it looks like this little group's getting back. They're now heading in towards the finish. So the speed this morning was very fast, as Sean said, but the heat, 25 degrees centigrade. Right now it's 30 degrees centigrade at the finish in Évry, one of those new towns on the outskirts of Paris on the southern side, with a massive crowd enjoying the sunshine beating down. But amazingly enough, we've got the US Postals dropping back. Have you heard on the headphones what happened with those? Because they shouldn't be that far back, should they, Sean?
Well, the bunch is going very, very fast, and when you're hanging on the back, there's a little bit of wind there, and somebody is a bit weak, they leave the gap go, and immediately have a gap. And we see 20 guys there, and we see Knavegard. He came back because Harris was left behind. We see him here on our picture now. He's starting to move up on the left-hand side to take Harris up to the front, it's if you go back maybe for some bottles or something from drinks from the car, and the speed really is turned on, well then if somebody just leaves the gap go, you can get caught out behind and find yourself in a group out the rear of the bunch.
And still the pink jerseys of the Telecom hanging on near the front, the green and white jerseys, Credit Agricole, hovering there or thereabouts. Let me just update you again, because I'm sure we're getting some people watching the Tour de France today who may have missed it in the previous 3 weeks. But the situation is going into this penultimate day, they're getting close to that banner, which I think would it be 10 kilometres to go. The time passes so quickly when you're having fun. Yes, it is 10 kilometres to go from the finish, less than 10 minutes. So stay with us on Eurosport. Sean Kelly here in the commentary box. I'm David Duffield, back in Paris in the dungeons, not having the sunshine that we're getting, or the finger on the pulse by seeing all these lovely ladies with half clothes. No, I relax on that, Mike. I'm sorry about that. There was nothing to look at except the walls. Mike Smith is in Paris, and in London for British Eurosport viewers we have Russell Williams, and tomorrow we're going to have Chris Boardman putting his part of the proceedings with Mark Robson. They've been manning the fort back in British Eurosport all the way through, which is a digital service. We're talking on the international service, which comes through the analog system. So we're bringing you the best in bike racing, the Tour de France, the 88th version of this race, which dates back to 1903. At the moment there's still the green jersey up for grabs. Most other jerseys are home and dry. What's going to happen today and tomorrow? That's great, look at that. This is the flat stuff. This is where everybody having to try to stay in the pack, not like the mountains. And one thing about bike racing too, as you look at them here, there are specialists in here at doing what we see now, driving the bunch along, closing the gaps down for the sprinters. There are specialists here, we just mentioned a bit back on our live program that Jerez had got off the back. He is a specialist, a mountain climber, winner last year of the Tour of Spain, hired at great expense to ride with the US Postal Team, who are in the bluish coloured jerseys, and they came into this race to support Lance Armstrong, looking for his third consecutive victory in the Tour de France. He's well set to do that just now, because coming into the stage today, and I know that a lot of British newspapers, as far as they're concerned, cycle racing ranks with pogo stick in underwater ping pong. We see the thousands and thousands and thousands, in fact millions total together, of spectators on the side of the road. The viewing figures from across the world. We've got a camera crew here and a whole entourage of Americans beaming it out to America. It's been beamed all the way out to Australia as well. Millions and millions of people across the world watch it, and sometimes our newspapers back at home just don't have a clue. Well, boy, this race has got all nations on the side of the road. We've seen the flags waving. Amazing. We had 21 different nations starting out in the race on this particular occasion. Obviously much more biased towards the cycling nations. France with 51 riders, Spain with 37, 24 with Italy, but it goes right the way down. We even had one rider from South Africa, yes, one from Great Britain, Miller, who crashed and is no longer with us. Czech Republic, Venezuela, Estonia, they all had a rider in the race because they all enjoy cycling. And the position at the moment then in this great international Tour of France is going in towards the finish tomorrow. Armstrong wears the yellow jersey, 6 minutes 44 seconds ahead of Jan Ullrich. There's no way he can close that to Jan Ullrich, at his last chance on the time trial. And in third spot now is the Once rider Josep Belocchi, who is 9 minutes and 5 seconds back on Lance Armstrong. He took over the third spot from Andrei Kivilev, the Kazakhstan rider, who's now dropped to fourth place. Just give you some idea of the internationalism of the top riders. One from America, one from Germany, one from Spain, one from Kazakhstan. This great colourful sight you see coming towards you now. And in there, as leader on the King of the Mountains competition, is none other than Laurent Jalabert. And that's an amazing performance by this veteran French rider, who also won a stage on the 14th of July and did that for the second time. And that really is a hero's welcome for him when he gets to Paris, who's come back, Jalabert, after falling off a ladder in February this year and severely hurt his back, and he was virtually lying on his back for weeks and weeks and weeks and had lots of treatment, and we didn't expect him to come back to racing with a bang, but he's done just that, and my goodness, the flags will be out there for him tomorrow. In the white jersey for the best young rider, Oscar Sevilla has got that for the Calme Costa Blanca team, the rider from Spain then, white jersey, and the team competition at the moment is being led by the lads from Calme as well. The only other jersey which really is up for grabs is the green jersey, and that's why we're concentrating upon it now, because coming in to the finish, and they're heading for it now, the points go down to the 25th rider. The first man over the line will get 35 points. The second man, 30 points. The third man, 26 points. Fourth, 22, and descending by 2 points until we get to the gap between the riders. After that, go down to 1 point, go down to 20, then to 19, 18, right the way through, 1 point each, until we get, diminished by 1 point, until we get the 25th rider. O'Grady, Sean, presumably, because you're the expert, you've had that green jersey 4 times, presumably O'Grady has got to be not hoping that Zab will be in the first 3 plays, but prepared to maybe sacrifice the odd 1 point, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, providing Zabel and himself are from 7th backwards and are together, then it'll all go tomorrow. But if O'Grady misses out, surely, and Zabel gets in those first 3 and O'Grady drops a couple of places, then it's going to make it very, very difficult. What do you think?
Yes, well, it's difficult for O'Grady. He has to follow Zabel, but I think we see O'Grady, he has to make his own sprint and not try and follow Zabel too much, because when you're trying to follow a rider like Zabel, often you can get boxed in the last kilometre, and if you get squares out, then you're too far behind and you have too much ground to make up. So it's better for O'Grady to try and stay up the front and not to follow Zabel maybe too much in the final. but you know, there's a lot of sprinters there, so I think it will be an interesting run-in. Yes.
That's what happens in the run-in with 5 kilometres to go, and Sean was saying stay near the front but not too far back, because Sorensen's come down, but none of the top men fortunate there. You've got to get right up the front. Inside 5 kilometres now, there they go. The pack, let me take you through some of the colours. The bluish jerseys on the front there looks like they could be the ones from the US Postal, but I don't think, no. Bonjour, it must be Bonjour.
Lamprey.
Lamprey?
Yes.
Wow, good.
Yes, well, Lamprey,
I can't see any pink on that, because we have grotty televisions here, not as good as you have back at home. Lamprey, off we go, Sean.
Yes, well, Lamprey, you know, they have been up there close a few times. We see Hunter in Antwerp, and he was up there the sprint, but he missed the stage. We see Svoboda 2 days ago when that breakaway was away, when Baguette won from Lotto. So they've been very close, and I think they're still in good form. Svoboda seemed to be very strong the other day in the sprint, so we will see. I think he's still in very good shape, and we see, you know, the speed is really on here. We see the way the group is broken up here, the peloton is broken up because of the crash, and in the last 4 kilometres there are a lot of tight areas. You come along quite a large road and there's a bend, but it narrows down, so it's a very dangerous last 4 kilometres running.
Well, you can see those big roundabouts, beautiful shots, but not when you're riding a bike at something in excess of 30 miles an hour. They're coming in now on a very complicated course. You'll see the position now, the little flag on the right-hand side, that's the final kilometre. Here we go now, round these islands. Every man for himself must follow the right wheels. It's very tricky. That's the one they've just gone round now, where we just saw on our screen beautifully. Then the sharp right-hander, and the drags in between are good enough to maybe jump a couple of places, but not very many. Then a quick flick round there again, and we come round into the final kilometre. That little chicane there shouldn't cause too many troubles, but it's not easy. And Sean, surely with the run that we had the week coming, what would you be to be in with the final? No further back than 50th in this string? Or?
Oh, certainly not. In the first 20, 25, first 20 preferably at this moment, and then as you get to 2 kilometres you have to move up into the first 10, and as you get, you know, to the kilometre go, you have to be up there the first 5 all the time. And but there's no place you're sure there's not going to be an accident, because, you know, you can be up in the first 10 and they can somebody go down a corner and you know, take you out. So that's always a risk in a running when you have a big bunch sprint and they're going for the stage win. These guys, you know, they go on the limit around the corners all the time, and you know, sometimes you get the run in, so they get away with it, but other times somebody slide down and he takes a number of down. If you're close to them, well then it's, you know, it's just a matter of can you get around the crash or not.
And when you make your way up, how do you get back in here? Look what's happening now. The Telecom are trying to ride off the front. 1 or 2 riders are trying to go fast. Bear in mind they're moving at 30 miles an hour. If you get up there, how do you get in?
Well, you just you know, you move up when you see guys coming up on your, if you're on the left hand side and there's more ways coming around you on the left hand side, you move up with them, and you just, you know, you just barge your way in, you push your way in through it, and you know, just try and get a bit of shelter, because you cannot stay out there long in the wind on your own unless you have a teammate who's, you know, pulling you up there up near the front and taking into a good position.
Kamikaze stuff. Is it all fair love wall and bike race sprinting? I mean, how much is it, I must say, down to dirty tactic, but how courageous or how mad do you have to be?
Well, you know, you have to be able to do that, and you know, there's guys who can sprint, and as we were saying a number of days ago, Roman, like, he never contested those sprints because he said, you know, these guys are too crazy, he said, and you know, you can do that or you cannot do it. There's some guys, you know, the sprinters naturally can do it because they're used to doing it all their life, and that's their strong point in the cycle, so they've got to do it there, where the other guys, like if Roman got the climbers, they have to do it in the climbs. 2
kilometres to go. Who would you pick from this bunch now? We can certainly see that the lads from the Lamprey Dyken seem to have done a lot of work and peeled off, and through comes the pink jersey of the Telecom. Can't see much in the way of support for O'Grady now. He looks like he's got to do it all on his own.
Yes, well, O'Grady has been doing it on his own a lot of the time. He's been following Zabel, but I think, you know, there's about 10 sprinters still in there if you look down to the list, but my choice, I'll stick out my neck, and Van Huyswyk is my choice for today.
There's one off the top. My goodness, who would have thought that? Sean, then Van Huyswyk. And They're now beginning to the pink jerseys have pulled up at the front then. Who's up there at the front? It looks like the Domo taken over. Will that be for the world champions?
Yes, I think they're making the sprint for Weinstein, because he is getting better the last number of days. He's lost a bit of weight in the mountains in the warm weather, so I think they will make the sprint for him. And if Van Heijswijk makes the sprint from, well, then he has no chance, of course. But if he can stay there in the wheels, I think he's quite a good finisher.
Still Domo on the front then, trying to rescue something from a disappointing race so far. Who's he going to get that sprint? Can the lead-out man hang on so long? What do you think about that, Sean? Is it possible for Van Heijswijk to stay out there? He's pulled up, I think, hasn't he?
Yes, one of the Domo guys have pulled off, but there's still one on the front, and that's Axel Merckx, I think, on the front. So, I presume they're making the sprint for Weinstein, but as I said, I think Van Heijswijk is a quite good finisher, and I think this sort of finish would suit him if he can stay in the position. Knaven actually on the front.
And there's a green and yellow jersey there for the Festinas. Might well be Sven Stutenberg. Do you think he's got a chance today?
Yes, Stutenberg, of course, he's going to be up there, because he's a very good sprinter, and I think he's as good a chance as any of these guys today.
Wunderkraft still doing the work on the front. Stutenberg right behind him. Then Zabel's behind Stutenberg. And O'Grady's lost 1, 2, 3 places. O'Grady's dropped back behind the world champion. O'Grady's been boxed out now. He has to stay within 1 place of the pretender for the crown of the green jersey yet again, and O'Grady's found a way through. He's still trying to force his way onto Zabel's, but Zabel's going to get the victory. Zabel does it, and O'Grady was probably second. Oh, what a finish! Sean, what do you make of that?
Well, O'Grady was he was pushed out there for a moment in the early part before the sprint. Really, the sprint started out, but he recovered very well, and he found a gap and he came through very quickly, and it looked like he could have finished second or third. Svorda was very close to him, but he made a very good comeback in the last 150 metres.
If he was second, he lost 5 points to Zabel, who had 35 points, and O'Grady, if he was second, would get 30, making 5 points difference. If he was third, he would get 26 points, 9 points difference coming in to that final sprint in the finish point. Now, there were 7 points between them as Sean takes us through this slow motion, and we're going to see if in fact Zabel has taken the jersey by 1 point, or is the battle still open for tomorrow?
Well, the battle is still there. It doesn't matter. Well, it matters, but if the Zabel have taken the jersey, there's still very little in it, and O'Grady is going to battle there tomorrow and do the same as Zabel has been doing to him the last couple of days, cause a lot of problems for him.
Watching from the top then, as we see a beautiful lead at Wunderkraft. Stutenberg takes over in the blue and the yellow. Zabel goes through, but look at O'Grady, wait back, he's behind the world champion, he follows the world champion, comes in, looks for a gap, has to swing in past the rider from Big Mud, still hasn't closed the gap on Zabel. The world champion in the whitish jersey on the right is suddenly fading, and he looks for a gap then, and on the far side Strada kites to come. O'Grady finds a little hole through, I think, and shoves his bike at the line, but was he third behind the world champion?
No, second O'Grady, third Weinstein, but O'Grady has
look at that.
He has pushed about a bit, so I hope there's not any objections in that respect, because we've seen some guys being disqualified for less.
Well, that was a real humdinger of a sprint, wasn't it, as the riders came into Evry with Teutenberg for Festina trying as only he knew possible to stay out there, but Zabel was not to be denied. O'Grady too, finding some way through off the shoulder of the world champion Weinstein, just behind the victorious German, and O'Grady just salvaging second place to hang on to his lead over Zabel in the points competition. But Zabel not to be denied, his 3rd stage victory and his 11th altogether in his record in the Tour de France. I think everybody knows that I don't like those intermediate sprints, but the other riders don't like them either. Those are the rules in the Tour de France, and for somebody like me who wants to get the green jersey, they are very important. You've also obviously got to have a lot of power, but I'm happy also that I won the finishing sprint to claim another stage victory. That's given me great morale now with just one stage remaining. The gap between me and O'Grady is now very, very close, and we've all to play for when we get to the Champs-Élysées in the final stage. It's going to be a real cliffhanger of a day for these two. Zabel then the stage victory, O'Grady officially 2nd, Weinstein's 3rd, and Teutenberg the lead out man there 4th. Jan Schwarade in 5th place. So O'Grady does indeed hang on to that green jersey by virtually the slimmest of margins. Here's the Australian talking to us.
Or whatever, it'd be a nice way to finish, wouldn't it? Close today, but a few problems during the race. Had to change bikes, 20k to go, so I was actually on Chris Jenner's bike, and so didn't feel too comfortable. But I mean, it's out the seat, so as long as I wasn't sitting down, it was okay.
You took a risk at the finish, going for that sprint. Can you go through that again with us?
Yeah. I mean, I got in a couple of pretty close calls with Weinstein's. Unfortunately, guys like that are pretty dangerous in the sprint, and you know they know that Zabel and I got a full-on rivalry going for the green jersey, but they're also interrupting a lot and making it pretty dangerous. I mean, it's just desperation cricket pretty much in the finish, and yeah, especially the last 20 metres there, had a good body hit.
Yes, it was a little bit tight, wasn't it? The judges actually did take a very close look at that moment there, where O'Grady and Weinsteins had a coming together, as they say in Formula One Grand Prix racing, but eventually decided that that was a pretty typical sprinting incident and took no action. And there, the desperate lunge for O'Grady that did it for him in the end, making sure that he clung on to the jersey for one more day. But look at that gap, just 2 points. And of course, on the final day, there's all the points to go for on the finishing line of the Champs-Élysées, plus those 2 intermediate sprints. So there we are, no change in the overall classification, of course. All the main men were at the front of the peloton when that brief stoppage occurred, when Sørensen came down in the closing stages, so they all got home in good time. Lance Armstrong then coming to the final stage, still in the lead.
I don't ever feel untouchable. I always know that I always get this impression that the condition will go away overnight, or that I'll get too old and won't be able to ride strong again, or even get sick again. And I think that that's a healthy feeling, to always have that challenge in your life, that things are not always going to be perfect. There's no such thing as a free ride. You're not guaranteed anything. And I wake up every morning thinking that it's just a start over. It's a fresh day. There are no do-overs. And I've got to continue to try and be the best, and to try and stay healthy, and to try and be honest. And I think that that's a very healthy feeling, to feel like nothing's free and nothing's guaranteed.
Well, barring accidents, he's virtually guaranteed that yellow jersey for keeps when he gets the Champs-Élysées for the 3rd time in a row. But obviously, still one more stage to go, and like he says, nothing's a free ride, you've got to work for it. Well, he's worked very hard for it, as indeed has this man for the polka dot jersey. Laurent Jalabert, Jaja, to his adoring French public, had a great time in the Pyrenees and is unbeatable now. There's just one 4th category climb on the final stage, by the way, but the massive points margin means he's just got to stay upright to collect that meilleur grimpeur jersey for keeps. And what about this for the best young rider? Oscar Sevilla, he really has had a smashing time of it on his debut in the Tour de France, beating last year's winner of this jersey at the moment by 10 minutes and 3 seconds. So we come to that all-important final stage of the Tour de France, starting in Corbeil, very close to Évry on the southeast of France, and finishing up on the Champs-Élysées. Laurent Fignon, twice a winner of the Tour de France, says, well, on the Champs-Élysées, the French riders often try something. It's their territory. Rarely do we have a break at the finish of one man or more. It's nearly always a massive sprint. But of course, it's also a bit of a parade for the public. The riders like to show off a little bit, so it's something of a feast for everybody. Nevertheless, Nevertheless, it's a difficult race, I can tell you. You try to climb up the Champs-Elysees 10 times and you'll understand just how difficult it is. Question, but it is a race especially for the sprinters, and Zabel's never won on the Champs-Elysees? Well, yes, that's right. It's like a classic for the sprinters. The speed is very, very fast on the circuit. It's always difficult to break away, and of course, the last stage, the sprinters want to win it, particularly those who haven't won a stage so far in the race. Well, Zabel has won, but he hasn't won on the Champs-Elysees. Either way, I think it's 99% certain that we will have a sprint finish on the Champs-Elysees on this final stage of this year's Tour de France. Well, there it is. A bit of a lumpy profile in some ways as they go into the southern suburbs of Paris. 1/4 category climb, and then of course onto the traditional circuit, 10 laps of the Champs-Elysees as ever, in front of tens of thousands of people, and then the final podiums. Well, just a reminder that we go live with the final stage of the Tour de France at 3 o'clock CET, 2 o'clock British Eurosport. Just a word of warning though, there's a possibility of going live 1 hour earlier depending upon how the live Superbikes coverage goes earlier on in the day, so stay tuned.
On them. Now in France everyone ignores the law. They park where they shouldn't park, but boy, if you park on the cycleway, then you certainly get your car towed away in a big fine as well. So it's well worthwhile bringing up your bike around here. There's lovely ways to ride your bike, and you can get around very easily indeed. And they also respect cyclists. The French love cycling. It's a great place to come on foot or by car, but better all by bike. Sean, it looks like this little group in front now has been whittled down somewhat from the early 23. Who have we got left at the moment?
Yes, it certainly has been broken down, and there have been the remainder of that group have been swallowed up by the bunch. We have Beldato from Faso Bortola, Verheyen from Rabobank, Bouvard from Jean de la Tour, Arts from Lotto, Vignocro from Telecom, Brad from Festina, and Matin from Cofidis. So those 7 riders have about 30 seconds of an advantage over the bunch, but we see the Bonjour riders are very active, and I think it will be touch and go if they can stay out there, because I think we will see more teams getting in on the chase, like Domo. I think, for example, they will have a go and try and pull this group back again and try and get it in there for a sprint for Weinsteins.
Well, this is the main train, and interesting then, Sean, seeing that the Crédit Agricole is starting to move towards the front. Is this just to keep Stewie out of trouble, or they like to sort of try and pull a fast one and nip off down the road, or is it just too quick for that?
I don't know. I don't know what the tactic is. They're up there. I see 2 of these Crédit Agricoles are up there. With O'Grady on very close to the front, so maybe just to keep them up there and to keep them out of danger first of all. I suppose keep them out of the wind as well. Keep them at the front and give him an easiest ride as possible to the sprint, and see what he can do against Zabel in the final sprint, because I reckon it will come down to a final sprint here on the Champs-Elysees.
Well, hang on in there. Whatever you're going to do today on Sunday afternoon, you may be just lounging about on your deck chair and you've come in for a glass of water, the telly's going in the corner, you found that Eurosport's covering this final stage of the Tour de France. So perhaps you might just like to come in and sit there and wait for the whole thing to come to its conclusion, or just come back to the last couple of laps. And you see the flag there of Denmark in the distance, the white cross on the red background with the Viking helmet on the top of it. All the nations here, they're waving and cheering, because these are the giants of the road. Since we start out on the Tour de France at Dunkirk, the opening day, when unfortunately for Britain, David Miller crashed, and that ruined his chances of A, getting the yellow jersey, and B, finishing it. 189 riders, 21 nations, 21 teams, 51 from France, 37 from Spain, 24 from Italy, 18 from Belgium, 10 from Germany, 9 from Holland, and 8 from the USA, 6 from Russia, 5 from Denmark, 3 from Colombia and Switzerland, 2 from Australia, Kazakhstan, Lithuania, Norway and Poland, and 1 each from South Africa, Estonia, Great Britain, Czech Republic and Venezuela. It's a free sport, by the way, to see those international riders here who've come from far and wide to race on the continent, and they're out here now pedaling their bicycles, and people who say have come from far and wide also to see it. I've seen the Americans round it, I've seen the Australians round. They've come from both sides of the world to be here, and the riders are treating them to this colourful side. And what you can't get off the television It's the sheer feeling of the speed as they whiz by. And this is after they've been riding now for just over 3,300 kilometres in all, and have averaged over 25 miles an hour. Over 40 kilometres they've averaged during these past 3 weeks. They've only had 2 rest days. The Jonah Arc there celebrates the going through. And this great Ferris wheel turns round. That is always going in the Tivoli alongside the Rue de Rivoli, which is going along here. There's another big Ferris wheel at the far end as they go into the Place de la Concorde. That's the one which goes straight up, if you look through the spokes, right up the Champs-Élysées, right through the Arc de Triomphe, and right on to La Défense in the background. And that's where these leading riders will be turning in just a moment. But they come round this right-hand bend, and they'll be seeing that long drag ahead. And Sean, that little slope towards the top of that Arc de Triomphe at the end of it all, how's it getting about this particular part of the race?
Well, it gets difficult as you go up there, and it looks nothing until you start going up it. Every lap it seems to rise up every lap, and it's harder to get to the top. And with the surface as well, it's a cobblestone surface, so it makes it very, very difficult, and the bike doesn't roll very well. It's a hard surface to keep the bike going fast on. And it also depends on how fast you have to ride. When you're riding like those guys, they're riding at a very, very fast rate to stay away from this bunch. Well, then it's always difficult, no matter what the surface is like or what the road. Even on the flat, it's difficult when you have to ride at 100% all the time.
Over 3,300 kilometres so far, Sean. You're talking about the buffeting they're getting now. When you finish, your body aches and pains, and your bum sore, or your hands aching. I'm not talking about a stage, but tonight or more like tomorrow morning. Do you feel like you've been through the Wrangler?
Some guys finish in a very poor state, and they get very tired towards the end of last week, and we see guys who are suffering. But then there's guys who are riding very well. They've been very active over the last 3 or 4 days, and those guys finish very, very strong, and they don't feel tired after this half of the tour. And tomorrow again they could continue on riding for another week without any problem. But when you finish the tour, you kind of mentally you relax a bit, and you take it easy for a couple of days. And some of those guys do appearance events, and others will just rest for a number of days and start off in 10 days or 14 days time with a World Cup event again, which is the one in San Sebastian, I think. So but the riders who finish tired, they need a bit more rest, and maybe they don't race for a number of weeks. They take maybe 2 weeks where they take it easy and then start building up again. So it depends on what way you finish physically and also mentally, of course.
Right, you get a battering there too. You can imagine what these chaps have been through. Yes, we're back on air with the San Sebastian Classic on Saturday the 11th of August. That's the next event on Eurosport when we have it. Here's the riders then going along the Champs-Élysées. And Sean's comments there were echoed in a poem that was sent to me by Ian and Fran Laycock from Nelson in Lancashire. They sent me a lovely little cat card here, and also said best regards to my cat Ruskin too as well. And I'm sure you won't mind me reading it out to people back at home, because they're typical of the spectators we get who get attracted to this sport and marvel at these riders doing what they're doing and what they've been doing for the last 3 weeks. And it's headed our heroes. It's like watching a rainbow skimming the ground, flying round bends and up mountains. They rush like a train through hamlets and towns, on the banner waving on high, and take our breath away. They're so dedicated, courageous and brave, and push their strength to the limit. They battle through the sun, rain, wind and snow. Some sad ones never come home. They're split in teams from around the world, all of them wanting to win. They help each other right to the end. A credit to their chosen sport, and put many others to shame. They're our lads, our heroes and gentlemen too, who ride in the Tour de France. Well, thanks for that to Ian and Fran Laycock and many others who've expressed through emails and letters to us all how much you've appreciated the endeavours of these riders on the road. It reminds me of that poem from Dr. Walter G. Kendall. It's called The Men Who Ride for Fun. Just the first and last paragraphs. We're healthy, we're happy heathen, the men who ride for fun. The faithful friends of bicycling, that sport surpassed by none. We've ridden through long seasons past. We'll ride long seasons more. And while we've gained both health and strength, we've had fun galore. We wear each other's burdens and enjoy each other's jokes. Respect each other's feelings and the rights of other folks. Bring out your wheels and join us. Here we welcome everyone to the Brothers of the Bicycle, the men who ride for fun. That was Dr. Walter Kendall, the men who ride for fun, and thanks to Mike Smart and his family for sending me that, and also to his cats, Kit Kat, Phil and Lil, Buster, Mitzi, my darling, Barton Millhouse. Yes, those are all his cats too. Right, back to the racing, Sean. Much changing out there?
Well, the 7 riders breakaway 10 kilometres, inside the 10 kilometres to go. When they come through this time, they go into the last lap, and they're still holding out there 28 seconds, and we see the Française de Joux and the Lampreys are riding on the front, so not a lot of teams contributing to the work on the front, so they could manage to hold out there, because if they get into the last lap with this advantage, everything is possible.
So it's touch and go from the run on into here, and thanks, I said, to all the letters and emails we've had from you. I've been unable to reply to them all on air, and many thanks for it. And I know some people have taken up cycling, gone out to see the route, and if you are keen, by the way, and you're a pretty decent rider, because it's a long way to go, August the 19th, phone 01 483 417 217 or the CTC on web, and join Phil Liggett and friends. They're going to ride from Sheffield over the peaks, so you can take part in your own trials and tribulations on 2 wheels. That's a great sight. The Tour of Italy finishes in Milan. The Tour of Spain finishes in Madrid. Both great cities, a great beauty, and a great place to finish a bike race. But Sean, I don't know, there could be anywhere to beat Paris to finish a bike race. I know many capital cities, big towns, finish the bike races, the short tour, the small tours, the single-day classics, but there's something atmosphere about it. Did you ever feel it when you get it, or you're so, nose on the front wheel that you can't soak it up? You finished in the big races. Is this something special that like I feel, or am I just, blowing my top as usual?
Well, I think yes, all the big tours to finish in the capitals is to say in the big cities, let's say, it's important. But I think finishing the Champs-Élysées, because it's the one where you go around up and down the Champs-Élysées for 10 laps, and I think the atmosphere here is more electric than any of the other big tours.
Back to the nationalities, David, on the Tour de France, and the Dutch have had a bit of a lean time in recent years, apart from Michael Bugert, who finished 5th in 98. But apart from that, and of course he's currently the best place rider this time, just making it to the top 10. But the Dutch have had great guys in the past. One thinks of Gert-Jan Tenissen, Steven Rooks and others, of course, and they've had provided winners going back earlier. But recently it's been a very quiet time for the Dutch boys, hasn't it?
Yep, and all nationalities are getting on their toes, Mike, because we're coming very close to the end of this race, and we'll concentrate on what's happening. The gap, I think, is down to 26 seconds, that, Sean, coming with headphones? Yes. It seems a bit like that.
Yes, it's coming down. It was 25, 27 seconds. I think it's coming down a bit again. So it's coming down slowly. But if it's 25 seconds and they get into the last lap, I think it could be possible, because in the bunch they might start looking who's going to start pulling the sprint, because the team who ride to close the gap are going to pay for the sprint. They won't be there to lead out their sprinter. So a lot of teams could start waiting for the other team to chase, and then it'll be too late, and those 7 could just hold on out there. And if they do, I think Baldato, for me, will be the strongest in this seven-man group.
Vundercroft, though, is in this breakaway group, isn't he? And they're on the bell lap now then, and in reality, with a gap of 20 seconds, Vundercroft has been working so hard. It would be justice, surely, for Vundercroft to win the stage, but he's up against the sprinters, and I'm sure that if we look back at the whole of the tour, some of my colleagues here were having a competition called Le Stupido each day, who did the most stupid thing in the race or connected with the race. But for me, if you look for the man who's been the man of the match all the way through the last 3 weeks, it's difficult to go back and remember and say this was great and that was great. But Vundercroft, to me, Sean, has been really a man who's ridden his socks off. What do you think?
Yes, he's definitely had a very good race, and he's ridden very hard, and he hasn't been thinking of himself all the time, because he's been riding for Ulrich, and also we've seen for Zabel as we did yesterday in that final sprint. He did a fabulous job, and also up in the brakes quite a lot in the stages, where he was fired off with the brakes going away in the early part of the mountain stages, and here he is again today. He's a great trier, never afraid to go up the road, and he would merit to win the stage in this tour, but that's not the way it works. I think Baldato is definitely definitely the fastest of this group. But if they come down to a sprint with 7 men, there's always, you know, who's going to lead out the sprint and who's going to close the gaps when the guy is attacked. So we could see one guy just, you know, like a Vinnicroft, just slipping away in the last kilometre out of a group like this.
So he's going now, and Vinnicroft the man, undoubtedly, if he could get that one, I would say well done, chapeau, because he really has deserved it, hasn't he, Sean, as just said now. But really, it's a bit much. It's probably the only place he could go is up here, but even so, he comes down the other side, they'll still swallow him up. So to go on the list of the riders who finished in the first spot here in Paris since 1904, when Dortignac was first across the line. It went on right the way through. We've been to Paris 127 times out of the 88 runnings of the Tour de France. Sometimes it starts here, sometimes it comes back here. So in other words, it's more times we've been in Paris than the actual numbers of Tour de France, which is this is the 88th Tour de France. When we last finished here in the year 2000, Zanini from Italy got the sprint. They have not won a stage so far. The times have been coming on the Champs-Élysées dates back to 1975, when Godefroot, who is the director sportif of the Deutsche Telekom team, that's the team of Jan Ullrich and also the team of Eric Zabel, who's at the moment got 4 points ahead of the man in the green jersey, Stuart O'Grady. He's lost that green jersey. If the situation stays like this, O'Grady has to finish ahead of Zabel in the finishing gallop. There's normally towards the back end of the points on the gallop, only 1 point each. It starts out. Now they're starting to do what they can, the Crédit Agricole, because they've got those 4 points. They're going to try and pull back to keep O'Grady in the green jersey. Little Jimmy Casper coming through there in the grey and the white for the La Française de Jeux. The lads from the blue here from Bonjour trying to set up for Mazon. The pink and the white trying to set it up to Forsferrada. It's down to 10 seconds now. They really are starting to give it some stick here to stay away, but it looks like it might all be over, bar the sort of crying as Matin starts to go. Matin said he was always going to try and win a stage victory, but he's hanging on for grim destiny. He's now looking for space behind the lead motorcycle here, but I don't think you're going to get it now. 10 seconds, Sean, is it enough?
No, it's not going to be enough, especially with him attacking here. If the 7 riders kept on riding together and shared the work equally, well then I think they could have held on out there. But we see Vinnicroft, he started to attack, and then we see Verheyen from Rabo, he also attacked on the uphill section. And you know, it was too early, the gap was too small. They had only 10 or 12 seconds, 15 seconds most, and that's too much of a small gap to start attacking. They should have kept riding, so I can't see him staying away to the finish here at all.
What a finish we could have ahead of us. Sean, situation now?
Well, Vinnicroft again, you know, it started now, they started attacking each other, and that's the only way, that's the way they're going to go on. They're just going to keep on attacking each other, but you know, it's going to be difficult for any of those guys to stay away. Vinnicroft, of course, he's you know, very, very powerful rider. He can do that over a number of kilometres, but I think with this bunch breathing down his neck, it's almost impossible to stay away.
He's got probably less than 2 kilometres to go, and so the riders then coming through. It'll be very shortly going through with just 1 kilometre to go. We'll see the kite up in the distance, and now it looks like he's been repris par le peloton, but he hasn't. They said he's been repris par le peloton, but he hasn't. He's still out there. Vinnicroft then still driving hard out. A camera here foreshortening the distance between him and the main pack. Then they're still after him here because they need every point. If Vinnicroft came across the line first, he'd get 35 points, and the sprint for O'Grady would only give him 30 points and 26 back for third. O'Grady needs more than 4 points difference between himself and Zabel, who rides for the same team as Vinnicroft. This man, really, as far as Zabel is concerned, will be great if he gets the stage. That will get 35 points out the way. Sean, with the green and white jerseys of the Crédit Agricole team having to do a lot of the chasing because this man rides for Telecom, surely that's going to blunt. In fact, they're coming across as Brochard starts to come across now. How do you read it for the battle in between O'Grady in green and Zabel in pink, looking for green for the 6th time?
Yes, well, we've seen Boyk down the front. He was chasing down Vinnicroft, and nobody wanted to, you know, to come out to take the pace making with him. And now we see attack of Brochard, so I think we could see another attack if they come back together here. I think in the last kilometre we could see somebody like some of the very good finishers in the last number of kilometres, like Decker, for example. We could see him going because a lot of the teams have worked to pull this break back, so we could see a guy cause a surprise and going off at the kilometres to go, but it would need to be a very, very strong rider to hold off in this sort of running.
I'm going to stick my neck out and go for Weinstein. What about you?
I think Van Heijswijk, as yesterday I went from, I think again, if he doesn't make the sprint for, if he's making the sprint for Weinstein, then it's very difficult. But I think he's a good finish on this sort of running up the Champs-Élysées.
Well, now, and quite, I can see the Rabank colours on the front then, so Decker might be looking for assistance to get through there, but they're all easier. And it's an attack coming off then from the Francis de Joux. Is this Brad McGee? Could be him. He's got power. He's past man who's gained medals as a junior on the track, and also in the Olympics he got a bronze medal. Is it him going now?
Yes, it's S. McGee. Maybe he's making the sprint for
Casper. Here he is.
Casper,
There's
yes.
Casper now. Swinging round now in toward the finishing straight, and Casper, if you'd like to look out the window in case I miss it then, Sean, keep an eye on that and jump up, because I'm going to watch the screen as Casper starts to go on the far side. Vanessa, this is Ferrara now, so I think it's Ferrara going forward now. It's Ferrara, but where's the green jersey? Where's the green jersey and the pink jersey? And Zabel's coming up as Zabel gets second spot. O'Grady probably got third, and Ferrara, I think it was, that got first spot. But what a disappointment then for O'Grady. He could not get past Zabel. According to what I saw there, it was Ferrara from Zabel from O'Grady. But how do you see it, Sean?
Yes, Svoboda was very, very strong. He started the sprint quite a bit out, but very, very powerful, and he won it quite easy. He looked around, he knew he had the advantage, and he put his hands up, a bit before the line. And as we see, he's looking around here now, and you see he hasn't won, and he actually, he takes a second look around to see it for sure, and he just puts his hands up, and we see they were sprinting for second place really after that.
Actually look easy, doesn't it?
Yes, he seemed to get a bit of an advantage on the rest, and but very, very powerful up this finishing straight, and Zabel, there was no way he was going to come over because he was too far off at 150 metres on the line.
Well, so Serrada comes across the line there. Interesting enough, we've had a lot of discussion about wearing crash hats, and I saw him there with his Rudy Project crash hat on. That's the place to wear them, believe you me. If you get in a sprint like this, you're on the up end of the speed at which they're coming. Sean, look at that.
Yes, there was a gap there actually. That's why there was three riders coming on the final corner, and they had an advantage over Zabel and O'Grady, and Svoboda see that, and he attacked the sprint right away over the last corner, and we see Zabel had to take the sprint all the way up the straight, but no way he was coming back on Svoboda with O'Grady in second place, a third of the stage.
You can see the disappointment on O'Grady's face. The way which Zabel's taking it too. He's not boasting, he's just put his arms around Stu. He's battled all the way through, Stuart Hairston and Zabel. They've both been through good days and bad days, and the green jersey has finally been resolved on the last sprint on the Champs-Élysées in this the 2001 Tour de France. A look then at Mr. Eiffel's Tower, which was going to be built for a special exhibition, then torn down after that. It's still there, one of the great wonders of the world, and people at the top there with a good pair of binoculars. In fact, you can get the great telescopes up there, would have seen this phenomenal sprint then of Serrada coming through here. But was O'Grady in third spot, or do you think Chutenberg here in the blue and yellow for Festina might have pipped into the post? Sean, what do you think?
No, I think Chutenberg was fourth, and we can see it here. O'Grady came once again in the final metres, and I think, yes, he was, for me, he would have been told with Chutenberg in fourth position.
And the rest of the riders coming in, containing the yellow jersey of Lance Armstrong, the overall winner of this year's Tour de France. The polka dot jersey of Laurent Jalabert coming in the main pack to the winner of the King of the Mountains competition. The white jersey then for the Oscar Sevilla, the best young rider. And in there too, the riders from the Kelme team who've won the competition for the team as well. So that's the situation then. We're going to have the presentations. Those of you watching live, hang on in there with us. We might have a bit of a gap, and I think we may have some comments from our studio from some interviews this morning about the race, and then we will be bringing you, I hope, before very long, the presentation of the awards to the riders who've lasted throughout this Tour de France. We've only got now 144 riders who've survived the course, and here you can just see on Stuart O'Grady's face how he gave it all. Go Aussie go, they'll say back. There'll be people who'll be sitting up in Adelaide all night watching this programme. We're very disappointed, but they can't be disappointed because the way O'Grady rode this year, he has come on a lot, I think. Zabel has that experience. They're two different sprinters, but they've entertained us all the way through. That's what the Tour de France is all about, particularly when it goes right down to the final day and the final lap. A marvellous piece of engineering, a marvellous race this year. And when we came into the Tour de France this year, there was some muttering that the way in which the organisation had slightly distorted the teams, so there are 8 French teams in the race, and excluding people like Pantani and Cipollini. Well, we may not have had the characters in the race that we've had when we had Pantani and Cipollini riding, but Sean, the racing this year, looking back at it, what's your opinion? You've been for the first time all the way round as a co-commentator rather than a bike rider. Looking back at it, what stands out? What's your feelings?
Well, I think the racing that they've been doing every day, they've been raced, the flat stages, the mountain stages, it's never been a let up, and it's been, very active all the time. And it's amazing. They do a number of days in the mountains, a couple of days in the Alps, 3 days in the Pyrenees, and they come out of those and, they just still race right from the line. And the amount of riders attacking, it's so aggressive, the racing now, and it's definitely, made the race very, very difficult for everybody, because when you race like this every day, well then it's bound to take its toll after 3 weeks of racing. The riders, get tired, but they put up a fabulous performance, all the riders.
I think that too. It's also been interesting, Sean. You never know where to look next for somebody else to do something which we didn't expect. Look at Jalabert, for instance, king of the mountains.
Yes, well, that's a number of surprises in the race, and the Jalabert one is perfectly an example. He got up there on a break, he got some points in it, got himself up in the king of the mountains classement, and then got away another break, went away on his own in the mountains, and rode all the stage on his own, and secured the winning of the mountain classement jersey.
And what about Kelmer getting the team award? We don't often see the teams up there. We may have a chance to see it this time. They've been sponsoring, I think, for something like 22 years now. And there is the official result. So Grady was in third spot. It won't put him in the green jersey or keep him in the green jersey he got now. But Schulenberg it was there. And Pataki for the Fata Bartolo team. He looked so disappointed there. Nazon riding for Bonjour team. They're the only team, by the way, Bonjour, to finish all the 9 riders that started this race 3 weeks ago. Mikhailov, well, that's a surprise for him too. He's pretty quick. And Jimmy Casper, he's promised a lot but never quite come good this season or in this particular race. Van Heiswijk, that Sean had picked as a winner, was just back behind him. So that's the situation. Bain seems my choice for the finish today, was right back off the pace in 12th spot. So in reality, I got it wrong yet again. So what's different, you might say? There we are, great views of Paris, and we, Sean and myself, met up at lunchtime, in fact, early lunch, at the Eurosport Cafe, which is in the Rue de Berry, just up about 800 metres from us here on the way up towards the Arc de Triomphe. And 2 nice people there who had won a special prize from the Sky. They've got some sort of, I don't know what it was, what it's their programs which they publish, but Sky magazine, Sky Customer magazine, they had won the prize to come across here. Peter Hand and his wife Jean Hand, they come from down the Studley way down towards Ulster down there, and they were here and they said, oh, we love Paris. We must come again to this lovely town, and I suggest to you all out there, just at one time in your life, just say we're going to Paris for the weekend or midweek, whatever the case may be, and just take in the sights and sounds of this beautiful city. I know that some say, well, we should publicise London or Manchester or Birmingham, but it's one place really. It's had songs written about it, and there's an atmosphere here. There is in many capital cities, but Paris, I spent so much time here. There was a Eurosport moved to headquarters here that really, it's jolly good indeed. And well, just get yourself organised when you come across here and just enjoy the sights and sounds and go around the museums and just take in all the atmosphere. You can just sort of almost just sit maybe in the Rue de Tivoli up there and just soak in the atmosphere there. You can do what you want. You can sit down, sit in a cafe, watch the world go by. And look at this stonework here. Marvellous when you think about the architects who designed places like this years gone by, the Notre Dame there, and the years it took to build, piece by piece by piece, and the way in which the French government and the city of Paris have renovated many of the buildings. They got a bit scruffy because cars pollute the atmosphere, and they make all the nice stone buildings get grotty and blackened and so on, but they've been out there scrubbing up dubbing and making them very smart indeed. So there we are. Well, yet again, Eric Zabel, 6 times points jersey victor in the Tour de France. O'Grady just there in second spot, pushed back. Well, he tried so hard. Naison way back in third spot. I'm sure battle will be resumed next year. And Sean, 4 times green jersey winner in the Tour de France. Your comments about Exal's performance this year?
Well, I think that he's put up a famous battle to take the green jersey once again, and it looked like O'Grady was going to give him take the jersey from him, and we always said that he would give him a good run for it. And unfortunately, O'Grady didn't get enough of an advantage in the mountains and the flatter stages, as we forecasted that Azab would be very dangerous and he would pull back points. But O'Grady, a great battle, and I think we'll see him in future years for the green jersey, in the green jersey.
Well, David, whilst we're waiting for the presentations, here's Oscar Sevilla, who's not 25 until September. Asked about his feelings on his first tour, said he's very happy, everything's gone well, the preparation, the team structure, the people out on the roads. I want to come back to do it as often as possible. It's the most wonderful race in the world and I've enjoyed it. In fact, I think I will work hard in the future to try to come back and win this Tour de France.
Looking back down at the Notre Dame, and in fact on the left-hand side there, if our cameras go around, you'll find a plaque which is erected by the city of Paris to all the thousands and thousands of Jews that were taken away and deported during the war from that particular jetty. There are sad moments going around this city. There are moments of elation going on. There's works of art in this city. It's an amazing place to come to. No, they're not paying me to do it. I just love being here, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it too, though, as my colleagues here, Mr. Danny Ellison, splashes us with water, you see. Now then, that's a sight to see. Up there, Czech rider on the rostrum. His his special hobby is ice hockey. Well, right now that would melt in the sunshine here as he's gone to collect his award. Surada, he's 33 years of age. He's had up to this season 56 victories, by the way. He won the stage on the Tour de France into Cork when for the first time Sean Kelly joined me on that particular occasion to give us the benefit of his great experience. He's up there now at the moment taking the victory. Bertrand Delano, the mayor of Paris, is up there with Madame Dominique Reinach, the president director of the Coca-Cola company too as well. So that is up there. Well, sure, that was a long time ago when he got that victory in Cork, and you were there, and a newcomer to commentating. It must be the great experience. This must be the real one they want to win, eh?
Yes, well, yes, follow that. He's around a long time, and he's producing some great sprints, and we see him down on Cork winning that stage. But he's won a lot of very good sprints in the meantime, and in 33 years of age, it's fabulous to see him in there, because there's a lot of guys not able to take the bunch sprints at that age, and he's still able to do it. And what a sprint today! And I think it's the Français, the Jew, who made the mistake. We see McGee on the front. The attack going to the last corner, but Casper was a bit off, so I think he pulled away as Volada, and he see the gap in the last corner, and he was in third position. He just went for it from there out, and he had a number of bike lengths on Zabel, and it was really over from the last corner in, and he won as Volada won pretty comfortably.
33 years of age, and he's got that victory. Well, here's a man who is now coming up here to take the yellow jersey, and he, after the 2 victories, we wondered would he be able to make it a hat-trick, but he was so dominant in the race now that he's now up there taking the yellow jersey for the 3rd time. A hat-trick then for Lance Armstrong, and again the mayor of Paris, Bertrand Delano, handing over the there's the mayor there up on the screen. We've got the director of communication of Credit Lyonnais, the sponsoring side of the event, which supports and sponsors the yellow jersey, and yet again one of those famous lions there. So Lance Armstrong up there, the hat-trick. Well, he's had a lot of flack from the French press over the times, but I think he's matured a bit in this race, Sean, because despite the way he looked back at Ulrich on that climb up the Alpe d'Huez, I think somehow he's a bit of a brash Texan, but I think he rode a much more controlled race and a much more, let's say, humane race. What do you think?
Yes, well, he looked back at Ulrich that day, and there was, we commented on it, but when he was asked in the press rooms on the rest day why did he look around so much, he said, I just looked to see where Ulrich was, but when I looked around, I looked for longer. I looked more serious because I was expecting riders to be in Ulrich's wheel, but there was nobody left. He said it was a surprise, and that's why the look looks so special. He said, but otherwise he said I wasn't staring him, I wasn't trying to psych him or anything like that.
And there he was, grabbing his stage victory, got the one of the Alpe d'Huez. The national anthem ringing out for Lance Armstrong in yellow. Dedication, all that training. I don't know another rider who has spent so much time planning to ride and dominate the Tour de France as Lance Armstrong has done this year. And there's baby Luke David with him. And by the way, I understand there are twins on the way, so with his hat-trick of victories, he's going to have 3 children to celebrate it before very long. Sean, it's a very difficult race to ride, but really now we're looking back at the quick poll. Will Lance Armstrong be able to break the record of 5 victories in a Tour? It says 62% say yes. Well, we'll speak about that later on, because this, I'm sure, is a record that Sean Kelly here must be sitting here and just thinking about what might have been. A quick comment from you then, Sean, about Eric Zabel's performance in this race.
Well, a great performance, and he didn't dominate the green jersey. He had to fight very, very hard for it against Stuart O'Grady, but the way he came back in the last number of days and took over the lead, he's been fighting the last, walking away to slowly, taking points off here and there, and in the last 2 days, like the way he's done it, and to win this green jersey for a 6th time, it's going to be a record that's going to be very difficult to beat in the future.
Interesting enough, not so many points as he had in the past either, which just shows you how he was battled right the way to the line by Stuart O'Grady from Australia. That was a close call at the very end of it, and after the last 2 or 3 days we didn't know where the green jersey was going to. Most of the jerseys were home and dry, but Eric Zabel and Stuart O'Grady have given us something really to look at and take attention of on this final day. And so Eric, well, we'll try and talk to him later on, and I'm looking forward to getting his autograph on this green jersey for the Dave Rainman Memorial Fund auction in October. But certainly Eric Zabel, he tried so hard, and there behind him is the battling Aussie. Gosh, if we get another rerun of this next year, book your seats now, because those two have entertained us right the way through the whole of the race, right up until the final day and the final sprint. Now then, this cosmopolitan crowd on the Champs-Élysées were cheering everybody who has come here to receive an award, but all across the length and breadth of France, there's a man on the rostrum here who would never ever have expected to be in the polka dot jersey at the end of it all, but my goodness, Laurent Jalabert has performed the complete unexpected as he now comes forward to collect his award from it says on my list is Jean-Marie Blanc. I'm not sure if the camera's going back out there, but up and down the length, there's not going to be a dry eye, I think, in any bar, anywhere where the television is showing the French version of the output here. because certainly, in fact, it says Jean-Marie Leblanc, but he hasn't turned up. Oh, combativity. We've got Jean Pitalier, the president of the Federation of the French Cycling Federation, is up there at the moment. Together with Philippe Pauls, the director executive of the company Champion, the supermarket group. And this is just showing you, he grabbed the stage victory on the 14th of July. Brilliant. And there he is then, up on your screen, Jalabert. Who would have expected that? Look, Veronk over the years, a superb climber, dominated the points competition for the King of the Mountains. As they go over the top, they get points on the various climbs. They all carry first, second and third. And a specialist climber like Veronk had been up there. Bottero, again a specialist climber. But Sean Kelly, would you expect it, quickly before he gets to Vila, that Jalabert would ever have had the polka dot jersey?
No, I don't think anybody would have rated that or expected that. And the ride he's done this race, to win 2 stages, and the performance he put up there, low on breaks, out on the breakaways a lot, and to win the green jersey, I think himself and the team are definitely surprised at his performance, considering what he had his accident in the beginning of the season.
Yep, so he's had green jersey, polka dot jersey. He's tried in the past to get the yellow jersey. He says he's going on for what, 1 more year?
Yes, next year is his last year. He said he's retired at the end of next year, and that decision was taken before this tour started, but he did not want to announce it. And if you look back at the number of years he's been there with Once, and the tour has been a big objective for him and the team, and it has been very, very unsuccessful. And this year, when he was least expecting it, I think he had his best tour for many, many years.
And a young man starting out his career as a tour rider. Up there, Oscar Seville, riding for the Calvo Costa Blanca Eurosport team. He's got the best young rider performance in the tour this year. And right, Mike, off you go.
Well, yes, I was just looking at the lad. He won't be 25 until the end of September. And
he looks 15.
Well, quite. But look at some of the good names that he's following. Pantani won that prize twice before going on to win the Tour. Ulrich won it 3 times, and once, of course, 97, he was also the winner of the Tour. So he's following in good company.
Right, well, following up company after that, we'll have the combativity prize, and we're going to have a welcome return for Laurent Jalabert, who'll come up here, and he's up there with the polka dot. This is the competition that goes throughout the whole of the race, and he has a little red number that he puts on his back so people identify. It's the one that is the performance that each day the rider comes along and gets his prize for the most aggressive or combative ride, and it's Jean-Marie Leblanc who's coming up here to present the award, together with Jean-Louis Loch, the Director General of the Compagnie des Fromages, the cheese company, the Coeur de Lion cheese company it is, who actually sponsors. There's Jean-Marie Leblanc, and well, Sean, a word about him. He had all the troubles in this race a couple of years ago. He's really seemed to put it together with a combination of teams this year. It seemed to be such a great and calm race we've had this year, but a real cracking one. So there we are, the combativity. You can see it on your screen then, Jalabert up there. Just let, excuse me, Mike, I'd just like a comment from Sean about, there's Jean-Marie Leblanc on the top of the car.
Yes, on that stage, Jean-Marie Leblanc, he didn't seem to be too excited on that famous stage of Jalabert, but I think the day he was in it was very cold. It was that first 10 days to tour, and the weather was cold. I think he was pretty cold, and or very cold actually at the finish of that stage. But Jalabert, that was the start of at the start of his well, that was his second stage actually. The first stage, of course, he won into Verdun, wasn't it? And we see in the sprint he was with Dirksen.
Sean, back to the pressures on Jean-Marie Leblanc. I mean, organising this event, they're like 4,000 people are travelling with the race, up and down the length and breadth. He does a great job in his team.
Yes,
just
well,
being platitudinous, but we've been on this show and it's grown so big every year.
Yes, well, the organisation of the tour is just perfect, and it is a huge organisation. But I think the big problem for Jean-Marie Leblanc is the selection of the teams and the wildcards, because that's something he takes a lot of talk about afterwards. And this year he went out and he selects a lot of French teams, smaller teams like Jalabert's team, CSC. There was a Bonjour team, and there quite a number of the smaller French teams. What a performance all of them have put up. Delatour have put up a very good performance. So I think in that respect he's come out very well from this tour. If they had put up very, very bad performance, well then I think he would have got a lot of negative publicity. But because brilliant performance of those. I think he's had a very good tour.
And there you can see from left to right, Jalabert in the polka dot jersey, the green jersey, Eric Zabel, in the yellow, Lance Armstrong, Oscar Seville on the right hand side. That award just being given by Patrice Clerc, the president of the Armory Sports Organisation, representing on behalf of the president of the French Republic, and also there Alejandro de Wolf, the charge d'affaires of the ambassador of the United States, representing the United States ambassador. So off they troop then, our 4 jersey winners. We're going to see the top 3 riders back again on the podium shortly after. But as we now look back across the Ile-de-France here, past the Palace of Justice, where I think they used to put people in the clink there many years ago. Haven't yet seen the Bastille, where they had the bit of a revolution a few years ago. But it's a beautiful, these islands. You can actually, by the way, the best thing to do, you see the rivers round here and the bridges, is to go one evening and get on a boat and just travel along. And out there on the left-hand side, just to, well, we just missed it now, is Bercy, where they have many events, including they've had the Open des Nations there in years gone by. And of course, unfortunately, France, or Paris in particular, lost the Olympic Games. They were so much looking forward to hosting all the sports, particularly in that Bercy Stadium just behind the picture we just saw then. These then coming back up here, the Kelme Costa Blanca team, Manuel Perez de Ribeiro, the president of the Spanish Federation, will be up there together with Nicholas Shane, the director of communications, to welcome the... Sean, you've known this team over the years, you know Belda, and well, they're a battling team, aren't they? They're an amazing team, these boys. What do you think of their performance this year?
Well, again, they've put up a great performance. To win the team prize is difficult, and in the time trial, I think they defended very well on that final time trial, because the Onseys were, not too far off them for comfort, and they put in some good performance, and I think they have improved their team that way. In the time trial, they did very well. The team time trial, of course, they put up performance, and in the mountains, like they had, they had some very good performance. They won a stage with Cardenas, so a very good tour for them, and an automatic entry into the Tour of France next year, because winning the team prize this year.
And David, we've got an interview with Vicente Belda here, the Kelme Costa Blanca Eurosport team manager, asked about his team. He said this has been a big satisfaction after the problems we had last year with Heras, Escartin and Ribeiro all leaving, and then of course the unfortunate Ochoa brothers accident. We've done it here with a new team, more united, more compact, fewer climbers, yes, but to be the first team in the Tour de France, it's very, very important for Kelme Costa Blanca team, and we're highly delighted that we've done it not once now, but twice. Vicente Belda, the Kelme team manager.
Well, they made it to the finish. They dropped a few riders on their way through, and therefore let's give our congratulations to the Kelme Costa Blanca, those who made it to the finish then. Santiago Botero from Colombia, Felix Cardenas from Colombia, Jose Enrique Gutierrez from Spain, Javier Pascual Llorente from Spain, Oscar Seville from Spain, Antonio Chola from Spain, Jose Angel Vidal España also. Well, there's the rankings. Looking back, Mike, you've got more information, but my goodness, those lads have made it happen this year, and particularly the background people behind the teams, because they're the people that look after riders. And looking down there, Kelme at the top, you've got more statistical information for us, Mike.
Well, only to reiterate what's on the screen in front of you, that you can see for your own eyes, that they've done it for the first time, and it hasn't for the second time, and that hasn't been done actually for some considerable time. You've got to go back quite a long time before you find a team winning the team award in the Tour de France 2 years in succession. So as you would say, David, chapeau to Kelme.
And we're going to have our 3 top men up here, first, second and third on the overall classification. There, Lance Armstrong shaking hands with his second and third place riders. Jan Ulrich in second spot, Giuseppe Bellocchi in third, and Jacques Bousquet, the director of the commercial side of the Fiat France, has come forward to congratulate them on their success. And now we've got the podium up there, 1, 2 and 3, the same as last year. Well, I had got Ulrich tipped to win this year, so that's nil for me. Sean, looking at the top 3, the same as last year, would you expect this way round? We had other riders picked, didn't we? But it's gone back as it was before. That's quite something happening, eh?
Yes, it is, and I think this year Armstrong, he started out a bit worried about Ulrich, and yes, Ulrich certainly did give him a run, but I think Armstrong was better again than he has been previous years. Ulrich, put up a super battle. Like we see him on a number of days attacking, and the day to Luzal Diden, he put up a great battle, and it was that crash we see on the descent one of the things to remember of this tour. But Armstrong definitely a long ways ahead, and just too strong for everybody in the race.
It's the one that sticks out the most to me because of the history of the stage and the fact that the race was still wide open. Before that, nobody knew who was going to win, who was going to be the big favorites, and so it was a time and an opportunity to open the race up. So, special.
Well, there we are. We didn't hear our headphones, but I hope you heard back at home at the conversation with Lance this morning. Well, the world and his wife is after getting comments from you. I know that British Eurosport with Janice, one of our producers, has been trying to get an arrangement to put a special Armstrong program together for next year. We've done what we can with British Eurosport to vary the pace this time. We had a special program for you before we did it, before we came here to France, and that was only seen on British Eurosport. And whilst we're getting ready towards maybe saying goodbye to all, back there in the studio, certainly I'm sure you'd all like me to say thanks to Mark Robson for his work in present the programme, to Chris Bourman for his comments, and also to my good mate Russell Williams. Mike Smith is still with us, believe it or not.
David,
Switch your mic on.
Some of the teams, David, have survived better than others, haven't they? We've mentioned the Bonjour team, who finished all 9. US Postal just lost the one, which was a little bit unfortunate a couple of weeks ago now. Christian van der Velde, who wasn't feeling well. And we've still not got down to Bonjour. They'll appear on your screen in a moment, I trust, because Bonjour, there they are, third from top there. Bonjour, the only team to have started and finished all 9 riders. I think they deserve a special congratulations, because finishing the Tour de France in itself is not the easiest thing.
Oh, and that's the finished result of the top 10 there for you for the Tour de France year 2001. So from Sean Kelly, myself, David Duffield, thanks for your company, by the way. Now then, Mike, what's going to happen as far as you're concerned from now on in? Bit of a party tonight?
Well, I'm not giving too many secrets away, but I believe there are 1 or 2 of us involved with the programme back on the production side here in the studios who have a little get-together this evening. It's whilst you've been swanning it around France, you know, we've been beavering away, the backroom boys who put all the statistics together and make sure that the pictures arrive on your screens on time and the sound and vision are coordinated. There's a whole host of people that obviously the viewers never see, but remember, it takes a lot of people to put any television programme on the air, and they're going out for a bit of a bash this evening, David. Pretty quiet, pretty low-key, I'm sure, and I might just pay a visit.
Well, there we are, looking back again at the Trocadero. Sean, a few words from you before you pack your bag and rush off.
Well, again, you know, it was a great tour, an easy tour for us commentators, really, because there's so much action in the race, and that is, you know, that's great, because when you have a long stage and you have breaks away and many minutes ahead, we had not many of them. So for that, it was a great event, and easy commentary for me.
Gerard Port's talking to us now, David, commenting on the fact that so many riders have finished. 144 have made it out of 189. Yeah, he said, well, the first week of the tour was not as hot, and the heat, of course, is often one of the main obstacles, because then riders get tired. So that helped the riders during the first week. And even though the pace was very fast, the body, when it's not so hot, can recover better, and that's what happened during the first 10 days. We had 2 rest days just at the right positions in the race, one after the Alps and the other after the 3 Pyrenean stages. So the riders were able to recover well, and if it hadn't been for that big crash later on, we would certainly have had more than 150 riders finishing the tour. So for us, it's been a good result. Also, during the first days, we were concerned by what we saw, but then riders were recovering well, and I'm also pleased to say we had no positive dope tests. That also is a great plus for this year's Tour de France. Gerard Pott, the Tour's doctor, talking to us here live on Eurosport.
Yeah, I think you mentioned before, Mike, about how much teamwork goes on here. People just watching on the screen have absolutely no idea of the entourage that travels with it, because yes, we've got the medical people like that, but you see the big trucks in the background are just soaking up some of the atmosphere of these riders in this final stage. Yes, we're talking to the top brass doing the things, but you know, Mike, there are people I see spark out on the grass who've been working through the night to erect the barriers and get the stages ready for the riders to come in. There are people who are out there when we've all long since gone, taking the barriers down and driving through the night to put them up the next day. There are people driving the trucks with all the television equipment on it to put the satellite stuff up into the sky. There are people who never see the race because ahead of the race there are people putting up the arrows, for instance, so the riders know where to go. There are people out there putting up the 25 kilometres to go sign, the 20 kilometres to go sign. All these people seldom see anything of the race, but without them we wouldn't have the race. Yes, the riders are important. Yes, they're critical to it all, but without that support, and particularly here the police, who completely close the roads for up to 3 hours before the race comes through to make it a great place to race in safety.
Yes, so many men involved, and we've managed to get hold of Laurent Jalabert. We asked him for his feelings about the tour, and he said, well, I'm leaving this tour as if I've been part of a great feast. I wanted to enjoy it, I was happy to ride it, but I didn't really know how the results would be, but then they came for me, and that was wonderful. I've had some wonderful moments on this particular tour, just before the start, during the race, of course, my 2 stage victories, the King of the Mountains jersey after that, and I just am enjoying today. At the end of it here in Paris, I can say this has been a big tour for me. Laurent Jalabert talking to us here on Eurosport.
Well, that was it then. All of our interviews, and I'm sure that you, like the rest of us, can just marvel at the way in which these chaps can come. Remember that fellow Jalabert, who haven't been involved in cycling very long, let me tell you, he smashed his face against the tarmac in Armentières sprint, and it really knocked the stuffing out of him. He had to, for several weeks, just be fed through some plastic tubes because his front of his face was completely smashed, to rebuild his jaw and everything else. And he got over that and didn't like the big bunch sprints, but he came back, and then this year he fell off a ladder, lost his back in a way which we thought he wouldn't ride again. He fought his way back, and he's got the polka dot jersey. It shows really the dedication of these riders, and you have to like riding a bike too as well to go and ride yourself back into fitness like he did. So this is the Big Mat team coming along now. The Big Mat team, they come from north of the France here. It's only about 10, maybe less than that, 6 kilometres to where they're based, a place called Aubervilliers. It started out by being a very small team on a small budget, and they survived only just by the skin of their teeth. Big Mat came along, put some money into it, and that made it possible for them to survive. They were one of the wild cards, so they're going up and down the Champs-Élysées as we look back now at some of the action of the day. Well, this is the live action, well, re-look back at what happened so far today, which resulted in Sferrada taking the finish at the end of it all. Mike, have you got a programme this evening for people, or is that it, over and done and dusted, or can we see something also tomorrow? What's going on?
David, we're so out of breath here that this is it. This is our last 60 seconds of our 23 days of coverage of the Tour de France, and I, like you, David, hope that everybody out there has enjoyed it, and thanks again. Can I just get it in as well? Thanks again to all those people who sent us emails saying how much they've enjoyed the coverage that we've given here on Eurosport once again this year.
Well, it's over and done with now, and I shall follow this very famous statement by John Michaud. It says, good wine makes good blood causes good humours cause good thoughts bring forth good works carry a man to heaven, ergo, good wine carries the man to heaven. So I'm going to celebrate as this man's just gone across the line with a drop of wine, probably some fizz in it too, and to all of you back at home, if you crack open a bottle tonight in memory of the great race this year in the 2001, also the way in which all these riders battle their way the length and breadth of France to bring to us again on the screens, and by the benefit of television, an opportunity of being amongst that peloton of these great giants of the road. This dates back to 1903, and there's talk about in the century they're going to go round those same roads where it started. There's so much tradition in this race, there's so much at stake for everybody. Our congratulations to all the people who got the jersey, but more than that, to the riders who we never named on the TV, the chaps who chased down the brakes, the riders who went back to pick the bottles to bring to their people on the front, and when a man punctured, paced him back into the bunch. They are the unsung heroes, really. All the accolade go to the people who win the stages and take the jerseys, but in reality lots and lots of bike riders will just go round. They've been happy to get just the finish in Paris Paris here. They'll be welcomed home like heroes when they get back to their family, and a lot of family now are waiting because they've been watching them for the last 3 weeks and seeing them and wondering when they go down those mountains, will they survive the bottom? What about that crash when Ulrich went off the road and all the hearts stopped and thought, would he get back on his bike? He got back on again. The number of times we've seen drama on the screen, brought to you live by television. Well, I hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to your company not only next year, but do bear in mind we've got the San Sebastian Classic coming up, we've got the Tour of Spain coming up as well, and we've got the World Championships too as well. So we're doing what we can on Eurosport to bring you live racing out there from the road. It's a very difficult sport to cover, but thanks for being with us for the last 3 weeks. Well, I think Mike Smith is breathless too, but Mike, how'd it go today?
Well, it started off as always on the last stage of the Tour de France, David, in celebratory style. En fait, I think is the word, but there were those intermediate sprints, of course, which livened things up, and of course we saw Zabel getting that points jersey eventually off the back of O'Grady. But then, of course, for all the thousands of spectators on the Champs-Élysées, it really was the big, fast finish, which is so traditional in the Tour de France, and eventually, of course, the presentation podiums, which is the climax of the 3 weeks' work. I've enjoyed